So we're in between two kind of extremes with this. We're in between the extreme, like the Quilliam kind of guys, who would give like a total revamp of the whole thing, and and kind of have like a moral relativism.
What's your strongest objection?
Just this point. So we accept that our moral relativism, everyone can be equally wrong. That's the kind of basis, the angle they're coming from, even if they wouldn't say it themselves. Then we've got our point, which is no, we have the objective moral reality, and then Anjam Chaudhry kind of followers have the same thing. They have the objective moral reality, therefore we should assume that in our discussions with them. We say no, we start from that and we prove it, we don't assume it. So if you understand how that works on a level like pork, so you might get somebody saying that there's no such thing as absolute wrong or right. Ah, well, pork is subjective, if you like it, you don't like it. I know it says it in the traditional text, but we can reinterpret it. Then we've got somebody from the Anjam Chaudhry kind of camp who would say pork is forbidden, you shouldn't eat it, and you should understand why you shouldn't eat it. We say no, pork is forbidden in Islam, it's there, it's historical, but in terms of communicating that, that's a secondary issue. The primary issue is that, does the creator exist or not? If you don't accept that, there's no way you're going to accept pork. Correct. So these are the discussions, but how do we live in our society? Yes, we uphold the rights of our neighbour. Yes, we do the utmost best to be good, positive neighbours in a society. When we say neighbour, we don't just mean neighbour to my next door neighbour, we mean neighbours in a society. Yeah.
Different cultures within the society.
Within the society, there's actually layers and layers of different people living side by side, and this is where it starts, on a grassroots level. You should know, you should interact with a Muslim in your workplace, and you should be able to see Islam from your interaction with him. It shouldn't just be a theological discussion. It should be, his theology is acted out in his works and actions. So you would see this, and he wouldn't. And one important thing as well, that we don't put things. We prioritize. We don't put things in jumbled order. If you don't accept Allah's existence, you're not going to accept pork, or alcohol, or growing a beard, or hijab. So these secondary topics, we can give kind of tasters and a little insight of why we have the hijab, why we don't eat pork, why we don't drink alcohol, the harms and the benefits of not drinking alcohol, and so on and so on. We can give that, but that's not really where the discussion lies. The discussion lies in, a creator said so. You don't believe in a creator? Let's talk about that. So these are the kind of positions that we would.
But his basic point, William's basic point, as I understand it, is that this position leads to, danger. That's his argument, isn't it?
Yeah,
He's basically calling for a more liberal, less fundamental, whatever you want to call it, revision. In order to bring it in line with secular attitudes.
Yeah. So that's a starting point, that the secular attitudes are right, and they're a good thing. We can actually debate on, is democracy a good tool? Is secularism a good tool? Is atheism a starting point? Is materialism a starting point? So we have these kind of theological discussions.
It makes sense. Exactly. But it actually makes sense, because what that group is doing is saying that we have the moral high ground, and they're expecting you to toe the line.
Exactly.
And you have your own moral position on this, and you want to bring it to the table. You don't want to be just marginalised and told to toe the line. You want to bring your points of view into that discussion
and discuss it on the foundational level, not on the secondary level.
Right.
That's in essence.
And you're seeing William as somebody that's
so they're basically
a threat to that.
So they've basically, it seems like, and I can't give any quotes or chapter and verse and all that, but it just, the impression that's got widespread amongst the Muslim people, I'm not sure if it's what they've actually said, but it seems like they basically give in to the premise that secularism, the secular premise that we live in this society.
I think what they're actually, from what I've seen of them, that they're basically trying to reduce your religion to a metaphorical argument. More of a cultural. You can be a cultural Muslim.
A cultural Muslim, and not actually have the belief. Paradise, hellfire, they're not actual real things. You're just figments of their own imagination.
Which is where I came in, watching you getting quite heated there, because there was a trying to talk it through as if it was a metaphor, and you were against that principle. But I think there was, what I saw, there was an underpinning of something else going on, which is what you just expressed to me. That's the important thing. We did have to be fair, we did have what happens on that camera clip. You can't see how it came in, and it was a bit
kind of a bit full on. So obviously I reacted to that. It didn't come across the best way. That's why I kind of came back.
It's not easy to keep you cool, is it?
It's not, no, especially if the way you jump in and then that kind of sets the tone for the first discussion. You got. I'm a human at the end of the day. If a man comes at me a certain way and I react a certain way, I shouldn't react, but that's how it is. But it kind of came across that I was.
It's sad that we're judged on that second.
We did have we shook hands after that, and then we said, you know what, let's go into this again, and then we did talk about it in a much more toned and much more toned down, detailed. And the thing is, when you're having these discussions calmly, you can actually go into the detail and kind of break it down a lot easier than just like table tennis. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's what happened. That's what happened.
It was interesting.
They've got footage of it. I don't know if they're gonna.
I was curious. I mean, to me, it felt as if. I mean, I'm going to say this is going to sound disrespectful, but it sounded as if they're almost saying they're not Muslims. That's how it felt to me, and I didn't understand how you could. In
essence, that's what's implied by it.
Yeah.
That's
so
what's implied by it.
That would be offensive. That's my point.
Do you know what? These conversations, we have them, they are attached to our hearts. It's not just like an academic discussion, but we can be calm and civil with it. It's literally just the way he came at me just then. If he was to come at me a lot quieter and more polite and show that he was willing to hear both sides and stuff like that,
to have a discussion.
We'd still love and hate for what we believe in. Sure. We'd still have that kind of attachment to it, but obviously the discussion will go a lot better.
Building bridges, not walls.
Exactly. So what you spoke to him after that and he wasn't happy?
No, that's right. We had a little brief chat afterwards, about it. I mean, we had talked about lots of other things, but brief chat about afterwards, and he was, he just raised the thing about the hands. To him it was clearly a metaphor.
Okay.
And to you it was much more fundamental and at the root of your belief.
Yeah. And, there's one clear basic argument that we went through in that, and it's like it kept kind of avoiding it. When we say that Allah is living, that living belongs to him in a matter that befits his majesty. So if to say, and it don't mean like our living. This was the whole point I was mentioning it. So to say that Allah has a hand, again, same way he has life in a matter that befits his majesty, not like our hand. So it's not. So his problem was that you're likening Allah, but we're not likening Allah because it's a hand, but we don't understand.
We don't understand what that hand. The form of that hand.
The form of that hand. We don't give
really, you weren't really arguing about anything there. That sounds like
it is. Because the angle that this came in, I'm not sure he realizes why he comes from this angle.
Sure.
Historically, this was a kind of this was a reliance on Greek philosophy, as opposed to reliance of what came from the prophets and messengers. So we have kind of two camps. One person that would drink from the cup of the Plato, Aristotle, the Greek metaphysics, and the other kind of camp would take from the prophets and the messengers. Allah described himself in this way. Be sufficient in that. Just follow. You don't need to philosophize and come up with a new thing. Otherwise, there's no need to send prophets. Yes, you use your intellect, but as one of our scholars said, that the intellect is like a witness in a court case, and the judge is the actual revelation. So when the revelation has need of the intellect, it brings it forward, like a court case. When the judge has need of a witness, it calls him, and when a witness's testimony is not required in another aspect, because it's not his expertise or something like that, then he's dismissed. So the intellect cannot be used in everywhere. One example that our scholars gave is a man came to him and said, how is Allah's hand? How is Allah's this? How does Allah ascend? He said, how many leaves are there in the trees? Can't enumerate that. How many stars are there in the sky?
It cannot be known.
Can't be known. But we can see these things.
Yeah.
We can see these things. Now, obviously, I know you're atheist, but us as Muslims, we believe this is based upon the Creator.
Things,
But the Creator, we itself cannot see, but we see the effects of the Creator. So if we can see the tree, and it goes even further. How many hairs on your head? This is your head. You look in the mirror every day. You should know how many hairs there are on your hand and all these things. If you cannot enumerate that, then how can your knowledge encompass how Allah's hand is? So it's on that level. Being sufficient with following what the prophets came with, whereas trying to philosophize in an area that your mind will not be able to philosophize.
Yeah, I mean, there's so, from the outsider viewing in, you have division. We
there
can see